Greetings, friends. I'm AK.
And I'm Laura.
And we are
the Chainsaw Girls. On today's episode, okay, guys, I know I say this about every single movie we covered, but this one I am so excited to talk about.
I cannot wait because I know you have so many facts about this movie. I have so many questions. I'm so excited to deep dive into the backstory and all the history with this movie.
Yes, we are covering 1982's The Thing.
So excited. But before we even get into it, we have to thank all of y'all for coming to our live screening of The Lost Boys.
I'm so sorry.
I was going to say, this is our first episode. We're leaving that in. I was going to say, this is our first episode that we've done since the screening. So I know it's been, by the time you're listening to this, it's been a minute.
Right.
But it's our first recording since.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was so much fun. And honestly, like, interacting with you guys and the fact that people came and like hung out with us.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
It was so much fun, and it was my first time watching The Lost Boys, which I dropped that on everyone at the actual live screening. It was such a cute, intimate theater, and I just loved it so much, and I really think that we are going to look into doing another one.
I think we should do one in Detroit.
Oh, I'm so down.
No, for sure. And honestly, like people, when I was doing like conventions over the last few weeks, like people were coming and telling me that they want us to do another one.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. And like, honestly, it really was like a big hang sesh.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we were all like eating popcorn. After the movie, we did a Q&A. We just kind of like discussed the film with everyone.
That was so much fun to me because it felt like a group chat. It didn't feel very formal.
Yeah.
Or like I don't know. It almost didn't even feel like a Q&A. It felt like we were all just talking.
Yeah. It didn't feel like we were, because we were on like a little stage, but it didn't feel like we were talking to an audience. It felt like we were all just talking together.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I loved it.
Yeah. So definitely we're going to 100% do another one. Just not sure what city we'll do it in.
Yes. But I'm going to say probably Detroit.
Yeah. I would like to do Detroit. Let's find a little theater here.
Yeah. Oh, if you know any smaller theaters in the area, let me know.
Yeah. DM us, Chainsaw Girls Pod.
Oh,
or
yeah,
email
I guess let us know. I was just thinking me because I'm here in Detroit. But yeah, that too. Only let me know.
This message is for AK and AK only.
So
yeah.
Back to the movie.
Yeah, back to the movie. Okay, we are covering, I think this is probably, I feel like I say this all the time. I feel like this is my favorite horror sci-fi, even though I love the Alien franchise so much. I think this is the perfect movie.
I really love this movie so much. This was my first time watching it all the way through.
I love that.
So I've seen, like, there was one scene, we'll get to it, of course, where I went, okay, that's the one that I've seen screenshots of or whatever. But my mind was blown watching this for the first time all the way through. Like, at first, I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember, is this an alien? Is it a virus? What's going on here? I mean, it does start out with a spaceship, so I kind of figured it out pretty quick.
Right.
But I was not anticipating how well that these effects were going to hold up.
Oh my God. They used $1.5 million of the budget for the special effects in this film.
Wow.
Yeah. And the artist, Rob Bottin, I could go on and on about him, but like, I think his effects are just, I can't even put into words because the fact that they hold up is so impressive.
And so can you even imagine watching this in 1982 when this was not something that you would see very often?
Mind blown.
Yeah.
And it's so upsetting that the movie didn't do well when it first came out.
That's shocking to me. That really is.
Yeah, it didn't. It had some really bad reviews. I think it was the New York Times that just gave it like a scathing review. It was just mean. And it's disappointing because so much work and so much love went into it. And I'm just so happy that years later, it's become this cult movie and people really appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah. Did they just think it was like gratuitous gore or something?
Yeah, it was like, because I think at the time, especially the autopsy scene where he's like cutting into the body of the thing and like pulling out its organs and stuff was just, even now it looks so real.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And also, E.T. came out 2 weeks before the thing. So I wonder if, whatever was happening in society at the time, maybe people wanted a friendly alien. They didn't like the idea of like, you know, a monster alien coming to Earth. I don't know.
Yeah, that's very possible. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. But I feel like that is the case with so many cult movies. They don't get good reviews at the time, and then years later, you know, people appreciate them more.
Oh yeah, definitely horror movies back in the day, the 80s especially, because the genre, I mean, you could argue it's still not as appreciated today. Like those movies really aren't getting nominated for awards and big award shows, things like that, you know, because they're viewed as less than.
Yeah.
Or, you know, a lot of horror movies end up using lower budgets. So maybe the effects aren't as good or the acting isn't as good. And it feels like now in 2024 that there's much more outward appreciation for the genre.
For sure.
And there wasn't as much in the 80s for sure.
No, definitely. And as much as I hate the internet, I think that plays a really big role in, you know, why there's been such a resurgence of these incredible movies.
It's definitely one of the benefits.
Yeah.
One of the few benefits.
One of the few benefits. Okay, so I do have to note, obviously, this was directed by John Carpenter, who is amazing. Obviously, Halloween, They Live, Escape from New York. I mean, he has so many, The Fog, he has so many incredible movies. But I think The Thing and Halloween are his two best, I think. Oh, but I love They Live too. Anyway, I'm not going to go into
I would say they're easily his most popular.
For sure. Absolutely. And I mean, I said this before, but I think The Thing is like a perfect movie. But John Carpenter was a huge fan of the original movie, which is Thing from Another World, which came out in 1952. But he didn't want to have the same movie, obviously.
Yeah.
Like he wanted to have his own twist on it. And he also didn't want the special effects to be like actors in suits. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
you know, those 1950s like monster movies, how it was pretty obvious that they were like in big, I don't know what they were made out of, but like
Latex.
suits. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So he didn't want that. He wanted the effects to be scary and to like have an effect on people, which they obviously do. But The Thing from Another Planet, and I believe The Thing, it's all based off of a novella in 1938 called Who Goes There. I haven't read it though, so I'm not entirely sure how closely, you know, related it is, but that's kind of where that came from. And John Carpenter just was a huge, huge fan of that. Which, isn't that so cool? You're like
That
a huge
is.
fan of like a franchise or like a movie, and then you get to make it.
Yeah. How wild is that? So The Thing is almost like a reboot.
It kind of is. It's like it's like a retelling of a story.
Yeah.
Of another movie. Yeah.
And he did a great job.
Oh my God, he did such a great. And as we go on, as we like talk about the film, obviously I'll give you guys the little notes. But I do want to mention there's a great documentary on YouTube. I'll put it in the show notes. But if you just search like The Thing documentary, it's incredible. It goes so in depth with everything. There's interviews with Rob Bottin, and he doesn't really do a lot of interviews, so it was really cool to like see him talking about how he did the special effects. Like it's really detailed.
Was it an old interview?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to say like either like late 90s, early 2000s, like maybe 2000.
Okay.
Maybe. Everyone's interviewed. John Carpenter,
Yeah.
the actors. It's
I love that. I want to watch it. I haven't watched that yet.
yeah, it's great.
I want to deep dive into the behind the scenes of this, the effects. I'm just obsessed.
No, they're incredible. They're so incredible. Rob Bottin like worked himself into the hospital. He was working
On this movie?
Yes, he was working 7 days a week at Universal, just perfecting all of the effects. And he worked so hard that he had to go to the hospital because he just wasn't sleeping. He was
Okay.
just,
Can I also say that would be us?
I know, right? Like just, yeah.
I was watching something the other day. It might have been after I watched The Thing, actually, where I was like, man, I want to get into special effects like professionally. I just love that so much. I love doing it on my little cosplay level.
Yeah.
But I could so see us doing that to
Like
where
the-
we're like,
The perfectionism.
Yes.
Of like, especially like this is somebody, I mean, when you're hired on as a lead special effects makeup artist on a movie, it's like, it's up to you to bring these creatures to life.
that's a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure, especially at a time when like these are like new ideas, these are new concepts, these are new ways of doing special effects. Like, can you imagine that?
I really can. Perfectionism, it's a blessing and a curse.
Agreed. It can drive you crazy, but you also get amazing results. So
Yeah,
you
it
just
showed.
You just might die in the process. You know what I mean?
He went to the
Like-
hospital and it showed.
No, I know. But yeah, I just think he's brilliant. And he did bring on Stan Winston for, I want to say it's the dog effect.
Okay.
I think Stan Winston got involved simply because there was so much work to do.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, and he needed a hand. But from what I saw and what I read, Stan Winston, like, he stresses that this was not his movie. Like, this
Okay.
was Rob Bottin's movie, and he was just there to help, and he wasn't looking for, like, the credit. So,
Sweet.
yeah, I thought that was kind of cool.
We love a humble king.
We do, and he is, so it's great.
All right, so let's get into the movie.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's dive in.
So I already mentioned that we start off with a spaceship crashing. So we see that happens. And then we cut to a scene where a helicopter is chasing a dog through Antarctica, which is hard for me to say for some reason.
No, I feel that. Antarctica, yeah.
Or I just have to say Antarctica and not really pronounce any of it. But anyway, trying to shoot the dog, which right off the bat, I was like, wow, Laura recommended this to me. And they're already trying to kill a dog. That's crazy.
Yeah, and the name of the dog is Jed in real life, and he is half wolf, half dog.
And there was a scene in this movie where they show him walking through the hallway, and I was like, is he a husky or is he an actual wolf? Because he looks bigger than just a husky. So I was not surprised by that, actually, when you told me that.
Yeah.
He's beautiful.
He's so beautiful. And actually, the shot where the helicopter's coming down and kind of it looks like he's almost going to graze him. I mean, that was all real. There was no CG in that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They're just really, I can't even imagine that
Like
today.
being so committed that I know.
Yeah.
It wouldn't. I don't think it would fly today, but
No.
obviously the dog was fine.
Yeah.
He had a great trainer and all of that. And they were very careful with it. But yeah, I don't know if they could do that today.
No. But that's also just such a risky thing to do. That's scary. Very
for
high
sure.
risk.
Yeah.
So yes, we see that they're trying to shoot this dog. Does the dog in the credits, do you know offhand, does he have a name? Otherwise, I'm just going to call him Jed.
I don't know. I've just called him Jed the whole time.
Or he's just like the dog.
I mean, he's the thing, right?
Yeah, he
so
is.
I guess.
Spoiler.
Yeah. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, I hope to God you've watched the movie.
Sorry that we're giving you a spoiler from 1982.
Yeah.
This whole podcast is going to give you spoilers. But yeah, they're trying to shoot Jed, and he's just booking it. And they are either a terrible shot or, it's just so hard to shoot something when it's running and you're in a helicopter.
Yeah. I know. There really was a terrible shot. And then the best is like one of them gets out of the helicopter and like goes to detonate a bomb, but like it slips out of his hand and flies backwards and like blows the chopper up.
I was like, why did they do that? But I do understand they wanted to kind of isolate those characters so that it was just that one person left. So what happens is the helicopter circles a research base. Okay. The helicopter lands. Everyone at that base, our crew that we're about to meet, comes out. They're like, what the hell's going on? Why is a chopper circling us? Because they're in the middle of Antarctica. There shouldn't be a lot of traffic, And so they go outside. The helicopter has landed. That's when two guys get out. One, as you mentioned, accidentally blows up their helicopter. And I'm assuming himself. He had to have died in that.
I would think so.
So,
Or one of them did. One of them definitely did.
yeah, I think he was trying to throw it at the dog, and it just slipped backward. It was almost like comical. I'm like, why did?
Whoops.
But he was wearing like mittens, I assume. So I guess
Yeah.
it's slippery.
That was not intentional, was it?
I don't think so. I think he was going to reach back to throw the bomb at the dog, and it just because he went, and then helicopter and himself blew up. That was a weird sentence, but you get what I'm saying. And the other guy, he doesn't seem very concerned by this. He's more concerned with the dog.
Which makes sense. Now that we know,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
The dog immediately goes up to one of the crew members who happens to be George, that we'll find out. And he like jumps on him like a dog would, licking his face. Seems normal. The guy is speaking another language that got off of the helicopter, and someone in the crew had mentioned, oh, that's a Norwegian symbol or whatever on the helicopter. So I'm assuming the guy was speaking Norwegian to them. They don't speak the language. They don't know what he's saying, but he's freaking out.
Yeah.
He has a gun. He wants to shoot the dog, it seems. Which you could be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are you throwing things at this dog? Why are you trying to shoot this dog? And so he ends up shooting at the dog, but the dog moves. He shoots George in the leg. And I believe that's when Gary, old boy Gary, who's in the house, or not the house, inside the base,
Yeah.
shoots him through the window.
He does. He breaks out the window and he shoots the guy.
Yeah, good shot.
Great shot. Yeah, Gary's got a great aim.
And the dog just runs inside the base, and they're like, okay, we can use this dog. They have a bunch of other huskies.
Yeah, they've got a ton of huskies in the pen. And Clark, we're introduced to Clark. We're introduced to all of them. So they all like kind of run out because it's, it's
Right.
They're like, what the fuck is going on, right?
Yeah.
So we're introduced to a whole bunch of characters.
Yeah.
Should we go through them by name? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So we've got McCready.
I was gonna say start with your boy McCready.
Listen. Kurt Russell in this movie, I mean, he's a badass. Do you know he was the voice of Copper in Fox and the Hound?
Really?
Yeah.
Aw.
I know. I love that movie.
Very different role.
Super different. Yeah. So we have McCready. We have Childs, who I also just adore.
Keith David, right?
Yeah. He's fantastic.
So many credits.
Oh my God. So many. And he is so incredible in this. I love him. We have Blair, who is a doctor. He handles like the autopsies. He's also a scientist. He's a smart guy.
Okay, who was the actor? Is it Wilford Brimley?
It is.
I noticed that last night and I was like, wait, what? I had to go back. I did not recognize him in this movie.
Should I know who he is?
He's like the diabetes meme.
Oh, wow.
With the big mustache?
Yeah, I didn't know that was him.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wait, what? He doesn't have a mustache in this, so I didn't recognize him.
I love it. I didn't even know.
I feel like I hope it's not disrespectful. Like, that's how I know him.
I mean,
but it's an age thing, I guess.
Yeah,
I wasn't alive when this movie was made. Okay.
Yeah, neither was I. Yeah, 82, right? We have Clark, who is the dog trainer, and I really like the character of Clark because he really is loyal to his dogs and he loves the dogs.
He loves the dogs.
He's an animal person. It's so obvious. Like, and actually the actor talks about how close he got to Jed on the set. He got really close to Jed and his trainer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they were really tight by the end of it. Isn't that amazing?
But yeah, even like you were saying, even the character Clark, he wasn't just doing this as a job. You could tell he really cared about the dogs, which was sweet.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And sad.
Yeah. It's so sad. Okay.
Spoiler alert, it's going to be sad.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Okay, we got Knowles, who I also think he's great. I love him. We have Palmer. We have Dr. Copper, and we have Norris. Am I forgetting anyone?
I don't think so.
Dr.
Copper was
maybe George. I forgot George.
Oh, George. We did mention him.
Yeah.
Dr. Copper, he was the one with the nose ring, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
He's like he is the main doctor of the research facility.
Right.
And then the research facility is the United States National Science Institution Station 4.
Wow.
Yeah. I wonder what exactly they do.
Yeah, I don't think we ever really find out why they're out there.
I feel like I could have done research onto what they do in Antarctica, but...
Well, even just based on what they show us in the movie, I don't think they ever specify what they're doing.
No, true. Very true.
So at this point, that was everyone, right?
I think that was everyone.
I think so.
Yeah. As we go along, if we've forgotten anyone, we'll bring them. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. So McCready and a couple other guys, I believe, Dr. Copper and someone else, they want to go to the Norwegian base. I almost could not say that. I was like, Norwegian base to figure out what the hell is going on. Which, valid.
Yes. And I think something that really stands out, especially on the second or third time that you watch this, I mean, you definitely feel the isolation as the movie progresses, but I think even from the very beginning, it's unsettling. They talk about there being a storm coming in. Even when the guy says, when McCready and them are like, Copper's like, we're going to go to this other Norwegian base. It's kind of mentioned that the weather's not great.
Yeah.
So you already feel that sense of isolation.
Yeah. And I already don't ever want to go in a helicopter. So the idea of flying in a helicopter when a storm is coming in, absolutely not.
No, thank you. Not interested. No.
Also, can I just mention that at this point, we see Jed, the dog, the main dog, just chilling around the base. And I don't know why this just killed me. I thought it was so funny. Like, he's just wandering the hallways casually.
Yeah.
We don't really know what's going on yet. At one point, they show him looking through a window, like watching the crew just staring like that. Oh, he was trained so well. He just did such a great job. He was so beautiful. And it also made me think about when I was wondering if he was a wolf. Can I tell you? I know this is a little sidetrack, but I wanted to be a wolf when I was a kid.
That's so cute.
Like 4th grade, my assistant teacher. I don't know why. Like, this really stuck with me.
Yeah.
So if you're a teacher out there, this is sticking with the kids. Fourth grade assistant teacher gave us all books at the end of the year. Aww. And the one, like, we got to pick from like 4. The one that I picked was White Fang.
Oh my God, dude. I loved White Fang.
Really?
When I was a kid, I wanted a wolf so bad. I had an imaginary wolf friend.
You had an imaginary wolf friend?
Yes.
I wanted to be a wolf in the 4th grade. My friend and I would try to run on all 4s.
Oh my God, we would have,
embarrassing.
dude, we would have been friends for sure. I used to do the same weird
100%.
shit. 100% we would have been
And we
friends.
both liked wrestling. Come on, we would have been best friends. Just later in life, it's okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
Anyway, sorry for the sidetrack. I just
No, I
had to
love
let
it.
you know this was like kind of living out my White Fang fantasies, watching Jed run around.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. No, I love your sidetracks. They're amazing. So yes, they're going to go to the Norwegian base. It's
Yes.
also worth noting that Windows, who's another character that I forgot to mention,
Oh,
is
Windows.
he's on the radio and he's trying to get a hold of anyone. And Dr. Copper is telling him, like, have you reached anyone? I think it's either Dr. Copper or Blair. Like, have you reached anyone? And he's like, no, like there's nobody out here. And he's getting really frustrated.
Yeah, he is.
So it's apparent to me already that they're feeling the effects of being isolated in Antarctica.
Yeah. And they're already establishing there really is no calling for help,
That's it. 100%. Yeah,
which will also be important.
for sure.
So they get to the Norwegian base and it's practically burned to the ground. Mm-hmm. And they're scouring around. Also, the score in this movie, so fucking good. Mm-hmm. And it just really just even further establishes that creepy feeling you were talking about. Mm-hmm. The very signature sound from this movie is the dun dun.
Yeah.
Dun dun.
So good.
Which I noticed yesterday, actually. I don't know if this is on purpose, but I think Shudder, the movie network, the streaming service, I think they use that sound, or it's
Oh.
very similar.
You know, you pointed that out last night and I never
Yeah.
noticed it until you pointed it out.
It's only because I just watched the thing. I was like, wait a minute, I just heard that sound.
Yeah.
I wonder if that is on purpose or if they were just like, this sounds cool. I don't know.
I don't know, but it is kind of like a heartbeat almost, right?
Yeah.
Like that, like scary.
Dun dun.
They also perform an autopsy on the Norwegian, and the doctor basically says there's nothing physically wrong with him. He wasn't on drugs. There's no alcohol in his system. And they're like, oh, well, maybe he just kind of went like, mad.
Yeah, he must have been crazy, going crazy out here.
Yeah, exactly.
Because so when they're on the base, the Norwegian base, so it looks like it's practically burned to the ground, but they do find a room where it's kind of frozen over because like doors have been opened. They're in Antarctica. Mm-hmm. They find a body of someone who clearly took their own life, which you're like, okay, something's going on here.
Oh, he slit his wrist and his throat.
Yeah.
That is desperation.
Yeah. And the effect is so crazy because they show like, I mean, sorry if this is graphic, but it's like the blood that was dripping is frozen.
Yeah, it's so cool.
It's so creepy.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything like that. I thought that was really neat.
No, I'm surprised we haven't seen anything like that since. But they find a block of ice that looks like something was carved out of, which is going to come into play later. And they take one of the creatures, I guess, that's not fully burned back to their research lab so they can also perform an autopsy on that.
Exactly. Yes. And Jed has been walking around the base and you kind of, there's a scene where Superstitious is playing.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think every single shot in this movie is just so significant and really adds to everything. It's just so good. But it's going like room to room and you see Jed just kind of, he's just walking around.
Yeah.
And, obviously we know now he is the thing.
Yeah.
But the way that they do it, I just think it's just so well shot.
It is. And you're wondering, something is going on with the dog. You just don't know what yet. But you're like, okay, they keep focusing on this dog. He's just kind of like wandering around and almost not even dog-like. Like how he's just staring through the window. I don't know why. It's so funny to me.
No, but it's because he has, you know what it is? Because he's thinking. Like he's, not that dogs don't think, but you can see he's got an idea of like he's thinking about something or he's plotting something or he's planning. So there's more behind his eyes.
Yes, almost like a human trait.
Yes.
And you're like, what is going on here?
Exactly.
So here they are all kind of chilling at this point. They do the autopsy on the creature and they are like, what the hell's going on? We don't really know.
They also found a portable video unit and paperwork at the Norwegian base that they bring back to their base with them.
Yes.
So that they can at least try to understand what is going on, because the burnt quote unquote body that they find is disturbing looking. Like it has human organs and human body parts, but it is clearly not human.
Yes. It has like a human looking face that's almost like split in two, like it was being stretched.
For sure. Yeah. And this whole autopsy scene, I mean, we talked about this off air, but it's so well done. The special effects in this are incredible. It's so gross. Like the sound of him cutting open the body, and like everybody's that, you know, walked into the room when the body first got there, like it smells bad.
Yeah.
You could just tell, you know, everyone's reaction to it. Everyone looks disgusted and scared.
How horrifying would that be?
People are scared already. Like right away, everyone's scared.
I also love when one of the guys is like, you need to perform an autopsy on this. Like, how do you even start?
No, I know.
Where do you even start on this creature?
Blair knows. Blair goes, all right, I'll get to it.
He figured it out, so good for him.
He really did. Yeah.
So at this point, they're all chilling. They're playing cards. They're shooting pool. A bunch of the crew is just kind of like, you know, doing what they do, I guess, in the middle of nowhere. And George gets startled by the dog under the table. And the dog just kind of like slinks out of the room.
Yeah, he kind of yelps. Like, I remember the first time I saw it, I'm like, did the dog bite him? But
That's what I was thinking.
I think it just like spooked him.
I think so.
Yeah.
And so George gets pissed. He yells at Clark.
Oh, wait a second. Well, George was shot in the leg.
Right.
So that makes sense. Maybe the dog like brushed up against him.
Yeah, that's true.
But he's already been infected.
For sure.
I think at this point.
For sure.
Yeah.
I feel like even when the dog was licking his face, it was probably already taking effect.
Yeah.
So Clark gets pissed. I'm sorry, George gets pissed, yells at Clark to put the dog in the kennel with the rest of the dogs.
Yeah.
This scene is wild. I know you told me you fast forwarded it.
I did.
For the rewatch.
The first time I saw it, I watched it all the way through, but I knew it was coming. And watching the huskies like trying to bite their way out of the cage was so upsetting to me that I had to fast forward it.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle it.
But what happens is Clark puts Jed in, I keep calling him Jed, but it's okay. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Jed.
Puts him in the kennel. And at first everyone's chill. All the other dogs are sleeping. They're just laying down.
They are, but the way Jed walks in, he walks into the center of the room
and just
lays down almost to show his dominance over them.
It just looks like, even though he is sitting how a dog would sit, he's almost like upright enough to where you're like, oh, you're not like the others. Because the others are literally laying on their sides.
Yeah, like regular dogs. They're chilling.
So he is very upright. And it's like, I'm trying to fit in. I'm totally a dog. Don't question me. And everything's fine at first, but he's also just staring straight ahead, which is so creepy.
He's just so gorgeous.
And then I think he starts vibrating, and that's what makes the dog start growling. I don't know which happens first, but either way, dogs start growling. He starts vibrating. And then at first I was like, this has to be the craziest effect in this movie. I don't think it is, but it's, I would say, top 3. What happens is his head like splits open. It's almost like it splits in a way that makes him look like a demogorgon. Is that what they're called in Stranger Things?
I wonder if they were inspired by this.
It looks like that because it has all the flaps.
Yeah.
And it's like his skull is exposed. It's so crazy. And then all these little, like, would you call them like tendons?
Tentacles?
Tentacles, yeah. Like shoot out of his body. Some grab the other dogs.
I can't handle it.
It was really
so
sad.
upsetting.
Yeah, so this part especially, I was just thinking about you and how you got through this movie.
Yeah, this is the one part of the movie that I really struggle with.
And I also knew this movie, because this is still kind of the beginning, I'm like, this has to be a bomb-ass movie if you recommended this. And it has so many dogs being killed.
Yeah, I was like pretty heartbroken watching this, especially like Clark's reaction to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because so there's like, the dogs are like freaking out, right? And they're barking, and Clark is alerted by this because he's like, what's going on? So he goes to check it out, and this is when the dog has like transformed into this monstrosity of like dog parts, but also like a creature that is like, it's really ugly to look at
and like slimy.
It's slimy, and there's tentacles, and it's when I say beautiful, I know that horror fans will understand. It is beautiful. Like that amount of work that went into it. I believe they used animatronics and a puppet, like a person in a suit.
That makes sense.
I'm pretty sure.
There's so many moving parts.
So many. And Clark is obviously like alerted and freaked out. McCready is eventually what happens is they all start coming down into the kennel.
Yeah.
And one of them is like, we need a flamethrower. So they run to tell, I think, Childs that they need the flamethrower, or maybe it's McCready, one or the other. And so they get the flamethrower because this monster thing ends up growing. It gets really, really big.
Yeah.
And it opens its mouth up and it almost looks like a flower blooming.
Yeah.
Or like a Venus flytrap. And inside of it is this, it's actually a bunch of dog like tongues and eyeballs. Like that was the idea behind it. So that it still kind of resembled that the thing was trying to absorb those dogs so that it could like become one of them.
Yeah.
But it is such an it's outrageous.
Like when we say over the top, we mean over the top.
Yeah.
But not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way. And I love how quickly shit hits the fan.
Me too.
It's not like just Clark sees it and then he has to convince everyone. No. Everyone there sees what's happening. So they set the monster on fire.
Yeah, I think they shoot at it first.
Right.
A bunch of them shoot at it. They end up shooting one of the dogs, unfortunately, but he was already being attacked. But they do eventually get the flamethrower.
And that was real. The cast actually had to put out that fire.
Oh, I was like, when they shot the dog?
No.
You're like, that was real.
No. Like the fire, like the cast had to. I think in the documentary they said something about them having to actually put that fire out.
Shit.
Yeah.
Wow. I also was wondering, why do they have flamethrowers? Is it to like melt ice?
Probably because
quickly?
they're in the Antarctic, so I would think, yeah, and I was gonna say polar bears, but there are like animals and
To
stuff,
attack polar bears.
or like I don't know. I'm sure there's like some.
I just figured a quick way to clear snow and ice. Because I was like, why do they have those?
Yeah, because they use like special guns for polar bears. You need like a really big gun for a polar bear.
Wow.
Yeah, I only know that from watching TikTok, so maybe I'm incorrect, but
TikTok said it. It must be true.
it's got to be true.
Okay, so Blair, of course, has to do an autopsy on this thing too. Literally this thing. And I don't really know how he came to this conclusion so quickly, but I'm not going to question it. He learns that it was starting to imitate other dogs and didn't get to complete the task. I mean,
Yeah, Blair's smart.
he is very smart. He also has a really high-tech computer for 1982.
No, totally. And Blair is an asset to them, which makes him later in the film not being available to them. It makes it more complicated for them because he is an asset for sure.
Yeah. So they learned that this thing is trying to imitate other things. And Blair immediately becomes suspicious of Clark because he knows that he's been in close proximity to the dog.
Yes, and Blair even asks him. He asks Clark. He asks him about the dog, and he says, "So you put the dog in the pen with the other dogs?"
Yeah.
And Clark's like, "Yeah," and he's like, he pieces together that was the first time that the dog went into the pen.
So he knows the dog has been roaming around all day.
Absolutely.
So now he's like, it could have infected anyone.
And he thinks it's Clark. He thinks Clark was infected,
Yes.
which makes sense because Clark was with the dog all day, like hugging him and shit.
So now we piece together, okay, so the Norwegian crew in the beginning was chasing the dog because they knew he was the thing. And whatever happened at their camp is why everything was burned to the ground.
Yes, exactly. And they watch like the video from the Norwegians. They watch the video. And on the video, it shows that there's something underneath the ice that's a little bit north of their base.
Yeah, and they saw that they were planting bombs to blow it up.
Yes.
But they don't know what it is that's under the ice.
No, they don't know, but they're like trying to piece together kind of like what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, so then they head out there because obviously they're like, we have to see what they're doing. Something is going on here. We have to figure it out. So they go to that site. They find a giant spaceship.
Okay, but can I also just point out when they
Yes.
climb down the rope to get onto the spaceship? So the spaceship is been uncovered. So you have to hoist yourself down with a rope.
Yeah.
That alone, I'd been out. Like, there's no way. What if? No, that's not how I'm going.
What if you can't get out? Did all of them go down too?
So I believe it's McCready and Norris that are actually on top of the spaceship.
Yes.
And they're kind of discussing what the fuck it is. And Norris guesstimates that ship has been underground buried for at least 100,000 years.
Yeah. Based on like how much snow had fallen or how much ice or whatever.
So it's been laying dormant for that long. And once it was unleashed, it's still alive. So this is whatever kind of organism it is, whatever kind of life form it is, obviously can withstand being frozen for a long time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
And whatever, I don't know if it happened when the spaceship crashed or when they blew it up, but something was projected from the spaceship. And then they find a big chunk of ice missing, just like the chunk they found at the Norwegian site. So clearly they had taken that back to the base, chiseled whatever out, and I'm going to guess it was something that assimilated or imitated the dog.
Yeah, absolutely. So they go back to the base and McCready is explaining this to the group. Childs is very skeptical.
Which I'm like, why wouldn't you believe that at that point after what you saw?
My guess is denial.
Yeah.
Because I think this movie does a really good job of demonstrating mass hysteria within a group.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right? And like the different ways that people handle that.
Yeah.
Like the paranoia, freaking out, whatever.
That's
and
very
I
true.
think Childs is I think he's a very logical, and also we have to keep in mind, these are like scientists.
Yeah.
Like these are people that, they don't just believe what they see, right? Like they need to have the information. They want to know exactly what it is. So I do feel like there's a little bit of that with Childs as well.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah. He needs a reason to believe this.
Yeah, which I agree with you. It's like, well, we did see that fucking monster earlier, but whatever.
Yeah. So.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say too, while they're all having this discussion, Knowles walks in and he has a pair of underpants.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, don't throw your nasty underpants out in my kitchen garbage. And he throws them.
Yeah.
But it is significant. That is a little tiny detail that actually does come into play. Another reason why I love everything ties together.
Yeah. And that doesn't really feel like so much foreshadowing there.
No, it's done so well.
Yeah.
Like because he obviously is like cooking and he's like, what the fuck is this, guys?
Yeah.
Like make your own food then if you're going to throw your nasty underwear away.
Yeah.
here,
It's just casual.
Yeah.
And so we see Blair now in his study or whatever. He has some computer program that basically tells him that there's a 75% chance one or more of the crew would be infected by this virus or whatever you want to call it.
Like what is it? Like a 75% chance or something, right?
75%, yeah. And it also tells him that in 27,000 hours from first contact, it would take that long for the entire world to become infected if it reaches civilized areas.
How crazy is that?
Which I did the math on that, and that would be over 1,000 days, which would be over 3 years.
But
I'm like, I guess in the grand scheme of things, not a long time, but that was like longer than I expected. I was like, oh.
it's like realistically long.
Yeah.
Right?
It wasn't like in 24 hours.
Doom. Yeah. But still so terrifying that he is the one to like discover that. And I think like the tension building amongst the whole crew at this point, it's just palpable.
Also, what is that program? That's what I want to know. How did they figure that out?
I don't know. He's a scientist.
He is. He's a really good scientist.
He is. Yeah.
So here, Fuchs brings McCready Blair's journal. He like pulls him to the side. He's like, hey, I need to show you something. You need to come with me right now.
Yeah, because I believe it's Blair. He's telling everybody to go into the storage room and take their belongings out because they're going to put the dead creature in the storage room and lock it up just in case by chance this thing is still alive.
Yeah.
So we see, I believe it's Windows and George. They're already in the storage room. McCready goes in. He's getting his stuff. Windows leaves and then McGreedy leaves, and that's when Fuchs is like, so George is alone basically in this storage room.
Just for a second.
Okay.
Yes. And then Fuchs is like, I need to talk to you. I need to show you something to McCready. And they go out into like the tractor or a vehicle.
Yeah. And I love too, McGreedy's like, like he's just like, I don't really want to know. Like
he's stressed out.
He's stressed. He's like, and at the beginning of the movie, he's drinking and playing chess on a computer. And then he's so frustrated that he loses. He pours booze into the like motherboard. So I think you already kind of get to know McCready's character, that he's just sort of like why am I being Why am I the one?
He's a little stubborn. He's a little hot-headed.
He
I would say.
is, but man, does he take charge?
The way you said that. You need to watch the video. If you're not watching the video, you need to watch a YouTube video. Okay.
Oh shit. Okay,
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
no,
Yes.
no.
Go
I love
ahead,
it.
please. They're in the they're in the tractor.
Yes, and he's showing McCready Blair's journal where he says that there is still cellular activity in the remains and that they're not dead yet.
Which I wonder if that's why Blair was like, put them in the storage room and lock them up.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
But he also is losing his mind, which we're going to see in a second.
Oh boy.
But
Oh boy.
I mean, I think, well, we'll get to that. So it keeps kind of cutting back to Windows and George. And now Windows is back with George in the room. They're still setting stuff up. And we kind of see the body that has the body of the creature that has a blanket over it is starting to move a little bit. And then we see it starting to drip ooze or blood or whatever it has. And then Windows leaves for a second, comes back.
Yeah, and he sees George, but it's like just like a bloody, drippy. It's hard to it's really hard for me to describe the creature effects in this because it is so disorienting when you look
Yeah.
at it.
It looks like he's wrapped in the tentacles.
Yeah.
And he's, I want to say naked maybe, and he's covered in blood. And he's just kind of like vibrating like, oh, it's very disturbing.
It is, yeah.
Even in 2024, it's still very disturbing to watch. And you don't know, is that his body or is that the creature now that's starting to become him? You don't really know, but obviously something has happened to George.
Yeah, for sure. And understandably so, Windows is really traumatized by this. So he runs out to McCready and Fuchs and he's kind of like rushing to tell them what's going on. And then we see George run out of the base. Like, and when I say running, it's hard to say running because he's sort of like hobble running. Like he's running like a
Stumbling.
not human.
Yeah.
Like he looks strange.
Very uncanny.
Absolutely. It's such
Yeah.
a great way to describe it. And he runs and then he collapses in the snow.
Yeah, he falls to his knees. I was kind of surprised at how fast this happened, but it also makes sense because there's so many people on the base that we have to get through.
Yeah,
So-
for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he falls to his knees and they all circle him because they're chasing him at this point. He has what looks like almost like not lobster claws, but like long tentacle fingers.
Like claw hands.
Yeah.
But and I think the actor does this so well because when the actor when George turns to look at
Yeah.
them, it reminds me of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's that like uncanny, like he's a human, but it's like,
Something's-
are you a human?
Something's off.
Yeah. And then obviously he's got the big claw hands.
Yeah, and he opens his mouth and lets out this like creepy shriek. Like,
Yeah. It's like a
Ugh.
call, but it's
ew. That just creeped me out when I just did
it creeped
that.
me out, but it's so Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Like that's really what it reminded me of.
Yeah, and I feel like McCready really took charge. We love a man that takes charge. No, I don't know. I might cut that out. I don't know. Kicks over a barrel of like kerosene or whatever
Yeah,
it
like
is.
gasoline or something like that. Yeah.
And what does he take? A flare.
He takes a flare
and
Yeah.
just tosses the flare right on it. George goes up in flames.
he just like
Yeah.
that's one thing I love about McCready, man. He does not mess around. He's like, okay, done.
That's true.
Yeah.
And just everyone's like, okay, yeah, we saw that he had like lobster hands or something. But Gary's very upset by this because he's like, why did you do that? Like, I've known him for 10 years.
Yeah, that's like he says like that was my friend.
Yeah. And
Which-
McCready, yeah.
It's so relatable. It's so, like that is how you would, like if somebody set you on fire.
Even if you know something is off, but if it looks like me, you can't get that image out of your head.
No,
You're still seeing my image being set on fire.
Yeah, like that
That's
is
traumatizing.
horrifying. So I felt for Gary in that moment, but it also made you sus of Gary
Yeah.
because a
Yeah.
little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
there's that little, well, why wouldn't you know what I mean? I don't know. I think they did a good job of like
Yeah.
keeping everybody, you're unsure of everyone's intentions.
You really don't know who's going to be next, if anyone.
And who to trust.
Yeah.
No, you can't trust anyone.
Yeah. So McCready's trying to tell him like that wasn't him. Like you saw his hands. That wasn't him.
Yeah.
They decide to burn the rest of the body. So they're not keeping these creatures to test anymore. They're getting rid of all of them, which is the right move.
No, for sure. And they bury everything in snow. And something that I noticed on like the second or third rewatch is Nulls, I believe, is the last one to like join them, which again is such a subtle, small detail of like, okay, well, where were you? Like,
There's so many times where somebody is late to the party basically and they're like, where were you?
yeah. And I love that they do that because again, it's like, as a viewer, you're trying to piece together who the thing is at this point.
Yeah.
And I think they just do a good job of making you second guess everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a spin on a whodunit almost.
Yeah.
But it's like, who is it?
My favorite kind of movie.
So at this point, Blair has a gun and he has lost it.
Yeah. Well, no one can like find him, right? Like
At first, they're searching for him.
yeah, they're like, where is Blair? We can't find Blair.
And he was a blasting. No, not quite.
He was like he had a huge axe and
Yeah.
was just breaking and trashing everything.
Yeah.
Like specifically in the lab, he was just in the infirmary, he's just like breaking and like smashing stuff.
He destroyed the helicopter.
Oh my god.
And the tractor, I think, is what they said.
Yes.
He's destroying the computer, or all the computers in the computer room. I don't know what
Yeah.
else to call it. With an axe. I think Childs also mentions that he killed the rest of the dogs.
He kills the rest of the dogs and they find one of the dogs with an axe in him.
Yeah.
It's so sad. And Blair is like yelling, nobody gets out of here.
Yeah.
Nobody gets out of here. Because he, in his mind, I mean, obviously the paranoia has really gotten to him. And because he's the one with the most information and he's not telling everybody everything, you know, he's just now assuming that this virus or this creature is going to overtake all of them. And they all have to die. Because if it gets out to humanity, humanity's fucked.
Which there's a part of me that's like, I don't know, is that selfless? Like you're willing to sacrifice everyone to save humanity as opposed to like, I don't care, I'm getting out of this alive.
No,
In a
for
way.
sure. No, for sure. I think his intentions are good. It's just his approach. Can we take a vote?
Maybe not so tactful. Maybe have a conversation first, but he does start blasting at this point.
He does.
He runs out of ammo, thank goodness. Tries to pick up his axe. He gets ambushed. A couple of the guys grab a table as a shield.
Which I think is so clever. Who's in the room with him? Is it Palmer or Windows?
I know Windows is on the ground hurt.
Okay, it's Windows. So yeah, poor Windows is like scared to death.
He's just in the corner, like bleeding from the head and just hovering, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, when McCready, it's always McCready. I mean, he is the main character in this movie, but McCready, Laura's face. He is the main character.
I feel like McCready and Childs are the two like most authoritative.
Well, that makes sense too, for what we're gonna see. But McCready and someone else, they grab the table, they ambush him, they punch him, they start punching him. The punch sound effects in this scene are so funny.
They're like the
psh, psh.
yeah, like what is it, like Batman from like the 50s?
Oh yeah, like bam, pow.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like Mike Tyson's Punch Out, like from the original Nintendo or something. That was the only part where I was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
You know what? Practical effects, just through the roof.
Oh, the best.
Punch effects, maybe not so much.
Maybe
It's
not
okay.
so much.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But they sedate Blair here.
They do. They sedate him and they decide they're going to put him in the shed.
Yeah. I wrote shack, but yeah,
Yeah,
shed.
like they're like obviously he needs to be separated from the rest of the group, and McCready goes into the shed with him. I want to say, is he tied down?
He was tied, I believe, at one point. I think they untie him.
I think they untie him once he's sedated.
Yeah.
And I think McCready leaves him a bottle of booze.
Yes.
And McCready tells him to trust in the Lord, leaves him a bottle of booze, and Blair tells him keep an eye on Clark.
Yes, he is sure that it is Clark.
He's positive. And it's so sad because when Clark discovers the dog, especially the one with the axe, like he looks so devastated. You really feel his like sadness.
Yeah, it was really sad.
I was sad. Shit.
I was also shocked. I just kept picturing you watching this movie.
Oh, no, I fast forward the hard parts.
So McCready goes back from the shed and tells the crew that he thinks one of them at least is an imitation.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he does take Blair's advice to heart because he tells the rest of the crew, we need to watch out for Clark.
Yeah, he absolutely does. They also discover that the choppers and the radio gone.
Yeah.
Big problem here.
And so they ask them at this point, they ask the doctor, is there a way that we could even test if one of us is the thing? And he suggests maybe a blood test. So they're like, perfect. We have a bunch of, I think he says if we mix our blood with like neutral blood or whatever, that there might be a reaction.
Yeah.
And they're like, perfect. We have a bunch of blood stored on base.
Yep.
So they try to go find it, and the door for whatever cabinet that is storing this blood has been breached. Oh my gosh. What is the doctor's name? Copper?
Copper.
I thought this was so funny. I meant to point it out to you, but I forgot. The way he says, they got to the blood. It's so funny to me. Just little things like that. I rewound it actually just to hear it again. They got to the blood.
I love it.
But anyway, they got to the blood.
They did. And drained it all.
Yes. So it's just leaking all over the floor. And they're like, only 2 people had a key to this. Mm-hmm. Dr. Copper and Gary also had one.
So Gary is the key holder and Dr. Copper gets the key from Gary.
Right. Okay.
So they're both sus.
They're the only 2 people that would have had the key. Gary said maybe someone lifted it off me.
Yep.
But those are the 2 biggest suspects now because the lock was uncompromised. It was not broken.
That's right. So they definitely, whoever did it used a key.
Which I actually have questions about that. I still don't understand that part, but maybe we'll get to that later.
We'll get to it for sure.
Okay. So Windows freaks out, understandably, goes to where they have like shotguns behind glass, breaks it, grabs one of the shotguns.
I felt for Windows. I really
Yeah.
did. That like sheer panic and the realization of like what is going on.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is really where we're starting to see mass hysteria.
Yep.
Because then Gary follows him. He pulls his gun on Windows. He's like, put the gun down. It's a whole thing. They're all circling each other. And it's like group paranoia turning into mass hysteria at this point,
Absolutely. Yeah.
which is terrifying.
No, it's scary.
In real life, that is terrifying.
Even if there wasn't a thing, like that type of shit happens.
Yeah.
You get enough people locked in a room or a cabin or whatever, and there's a threat, people will start to lose it.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It actually terrifies me thinking about situations like that.
Me too.
Because it's realistic.
It really scares me because there's always a wild person that goes unhinged and
Yeah.
thinks that they're solving things when
Yeah.
like Windows here. Poor
And they
guy.
have a lot of people in this group, so chances are someone is going to freak the fuck out.
Yeah, exactly.
So McCready tells them a storm is hitting in 6 hours.
Right. And don't they light the blood bags on fire too?
Oh yeah, they burn them.
They burn them
I
just in
think
case.
This might be where he's telling them there's a storm hitting.
Yeah.
They're like, just in case, they're setting that blood on fire. And so they decide, McCready, once again, takes charge. And they're listening to him. He's the leader, clearly.
Yeah.
And they separate Dr. Copper, Gary, and Clark. He says, separate them, sedate them, tie them up so we can monitor them.
Yes, which makes sense.
I understand you want to, just for safety purposes, you
Yeah.
want to separate them just in case.
Yeah, for sure. Because you never know. He could be true.
And at this point,
He could be true. Oh my God. He could be right.
True. And I was actually questioning at this point, if they're infected, could they even talk? Because when we saw that happen to George, he was very clearly a creature. You know, he looked like something was wrong with him. He couldn't speak. He was making a weird noise. So I was thinking like, well, if they're talking and they're sounding logical, then they can't be the thing.
But I think it's because they haven't, the thing hasn't fully absorbed George yet.
That is what I think it ends up being, because we will see they can talk.
They definitely can. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is. And then one of the things I really love too, the scene where McCready is alone and he's recording himself on like a tape deck.
Yeah.
And he's drinking like Jim Beam, I think, or something.
Yeah.
And he's basically just talking about what's happening.
Yeah, he's
essentially.
He's leaving a record just in case something happens to them. He said he's going to record it and then stash it.
Yes,
So,
yes. And he says something to the effect of like that the thing has to rip through people's clothing. Mm-hmm. And so whoever's clothing is left behind is probably, the thing has probably taken over that person.
Like those long johns
Like
or
the long
underwear
johns.
that old boy found in the kitchen.
Which had no name tag in them.
Right. So he was saying these could be anyone's.
Which now leads you to believe that this creature is very smart and very observant. And even when, like, knowing who the creatures are, when you're like who the thing is, you can see how, like the dog.
Yeah.
He's watching everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to understand, okay, I have to blend in with these people, but I also have to be ahead of these people. I have to be one step ahead of them.
Yeah. So McCready and Fuchs are in a room together, and Fuchs is telling McCready that, okay, if this can be transferred via cells or whatever, let's all eat out of cans. Like, he's very
Yeah.
invested in making sure this doesn't spread.
Yeah.
And he thinks he sees someone. After McCready leaves, he thinks he sees someone, and he follows them outside with a flare. Mm-hmm. So McCready leaves. Fuchs is researching.
Yeah. He's
right?
like researching. Yeah. Late into the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the power goes out, and then he hears a gunshot. And then there's someone that you see like a shadow walk by the door. So he's like scared. Obviously, he wants to know what's going on. Brave of him to go follow it.
Wouldn't be me.
No, I would have shut that door and locked it.
Yeah.
But he takes a flare and he goes outside.
Yep.
And here he finds McCready's torn up jacket, which we just established must mean that that person is the thing.
Yeah, right. It definitely makes you skeptical of McCready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter at this point because now Fuchs is missing, and we go back to the other crew and they're like, where's Fuchs?
Yeah, where's Fuchs?
We can't find him. He's been gone for 20 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, and I think McCready is really like wondering like what's going on. Why did a fuse go in the lab? Like,
Right.
why did the lab lose power?
Right.
Yeah.
And so they have to go find Fuchs, but no one wants to go alone with the other person.
No, and they're all kind of infighting, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone's kind of arguing with each other.
Yeah, because McCready, of course, tries to take charge. I feel like that needs to be like I don't know, like some special logo, like take charge.
Take charge. And there's just a picture of McCready.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
And pair people off, and they're like, no, I don't want to go with him. I don't want to go with him. And so he's just like, he loses it.
Yeah, he's just like, okay, fine. It's McCready, Knowles, and Childs. They all go outside, and they're like, we're just gonna go talk to Blair.
Yeah.
Who's in the cabin? Or not the cabin, the shack.
The shack shed.
Because they're like, well, maybe Blair knows where Fuchs is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Fuchs went out to see Blair.
Yeah.
Like, who the hell knows, right?
They have a little like door window or like a little sliding window thing on the door. Is that what it's called?
Yes, it is. Like not in prison, but if you're in like a prison institution and they like open up the little gimmick.
Speaking of,
Oh my God. Do you want to explain what we see?
so as soon as we see Blair in there, just casually hanging like between Blair and where McCready would be standing, he has fastened and hung a noose.
And no one says anything about it.
That's the weirdest part to me is that I went, wait a minute, was that there when they first put him in there? Because no one is acknowledging it. It's clearly in his face.
Yeah.
And no one's like, hey, what's that all about?
Which I think screams to the fact that this, like, they're not even thinking about that.
They don't care.
They don't give a fuck. I'm sorry. They don't. They're like,
they do have bigger problems.
they have way bigger problems. And as much as I'm sure they don't want anything to happen to Blair,
Sure.
they're like, okay,
Right now, we just need to find Fuchs.
yeah, this isn't important.
Have you seen Fuchs? And he doesn't answer the question.
No, but he's begging them to let him out. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm better now. Like now, I'm calm, blah, blah, blah. And he's really pushing to have them let him out.
And he won't hurt anyone.
Yeah, no, they're not letting him out.
And they just shut the door in his face.
They don't care. They're like, yeah, no, because he's a liability.
Yeah. And
We can't bring more chaos into the group.
No, I don't blame them.
Yeah.
After the way he was acting, there's no way I would trust him.
Not a chance.
So they keep searching and they end up finding Fuchs' glasses next to like a charred body, essentially, in the snow. So they're like, what happened? Do you think that, like, why would he burn himself?
Yeah,
Or why would it burn him?
Yeah, either like,
They thought maybe he burned himself so it couldn't get to him because he had a flare.
yeah, so they were saying like maybe he lit himself on fire.
Yeah.
Which like, oh God.
Yeah.
Oh.
Either way, there's a burned body there that looks human.
Yeah, so yeah, we're led to believe that's Fuchs.
But nonetheless, they find Fuchs' glasses, and I think that's really what made them realize it was him.
Yeah.
So McCready and Knowles go up to McCready's shack. He's like, Windows, you go back to tell the others.
Yep.
Knowles and I are going to go up to my shack. And Knowles is like, what for? Like, he's pissed, which I understand.
Yeah.
And he's like, because I turned the lights off when I left earlier and the lights are on.
Yeah, that gave whenever I remember like when I first saw it, and even on the rewatches, like it gave me like the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, you're like, ooh.
I'm like, ooh, God, like who was in there?
It's a very, like, I don't know, campfire tale.
Yeah.
Of like,
and then I turned around and the light was on.
and the call was coming from inside the house.
I love it.
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
So then we go back to the base and they're starting to board up the doors. They're waiting for them, but they're not coming back.
Yeah, like I think a little bit of time goes by and they're like, well, we need to secure the perimeter.
Yeah.
So they start like nailing boards to the windows and the doors to the windows. Okay, sorry, that was terrible.
Literally the windows to the walls.
Really? Mm-hmm.
And Knowles comes bursting back through a door
Yep.
without McCready. Mm-hmm. And they're like, obviously, what the hell happened? And he said he cut him loose. So was he saying that he tied him up, basically?
I think he was saying cut him loose as a term of like he fucked off.
Okay.
I think so. Also, Norris is looking out the window and he kind of winces in pain.
Yeah, like he's having little tummy issues or
Yeah,
something.
he's
going
having
on.
problems.
But he also was the one who yelled. He yelled, "Hey, everyone, come look at this." And I think that's when Knowles came through.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's interesting.
So he was talking.
He was.
So Knowles tells everyone that basically, he found the jacket. That's what it was.
Yes, he found an item of McCready's clothing or a
Yes.
bag or something like that. And he tells the group, like, it's paranoia. Like, he's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if I found this outside, there's a good chance that McCready's a thing.
Yeah.
Childs is very skeptical of that.
And I assume it's the same torn up jacket that Fuchs had found.
I would imagine. Yeah, I think so. But I love that. This is what I love about the character of Childs. He really is the type of person that, like, he doesn't just believe what you say. Like, he needs concrete proof. He wants to know what's going on. And he's skeptical of McCready being the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then they're also saying, I think they hear a knock at the door and they're saying, at some point they say, no one could make it back in this weather. Whatever the temperature is out, like he would not be able to make it back by himself or something without whatever equipment Knowles had.
No, exactly. And Palmer is like, as somebody's like banging on the door, Palmer is like ready to light him up.
Oh, yeah.
And Childs is the one that's like, don't know. Like, you don't know that he is the, like, I don't even think they call him the thing, but they, like, he's basically saying, like, you don't know if he's the creature.
Yeah.
Don't know. Because,
I think Windows even says at this point, he's like, what if we're wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, again, is very realistic. People are kind of losing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But McCready, being, the resourceful man that he is, we hear a window break in the distance, and he broke in.
He did,
through
yeah.
another way because they
Yeah.
were not going to let him in through that door, or at least they were taking too long to debate it.
And it's freezing outside, and you can definitely see that when the door opens and McCready's in this room. He looks like an icicle.
Yeah, and I think they said it was -40 outside,
Super, super cold. McCready's holding dynamite in his hand.
which is so smart because he knew that they were going to come try to attack him with the flamethrowers.
Absolutely. And he's basically saying, like, good, light me up. This whole place is going to blow up.
And so they're like, maybe we don't
they're
want to do that.
Maybe we don't want to die. Yeah.
So Knowles and another person, I forget who, maybe you remember, but they try to ambush him. And actually it's Norris. Knowles and Norris try to attack McCready, and they get knocked over. And Norris, you don't know if he like hit his head or what, but he just like has a weird reaction on the ground.
And he essentially has a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he stops breathing.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, go get the doctor, who's been tied up and sedated, by the way.
I know. And they need to like use the, what is it called? The resuscitation clamps?
The paddles?
The paddles.
Yeah, to resuscitate him.
Yeah.
And the doctor is doing that, like, clear, that type of thing.
I think this might be my favorite effect in the entire movie. Like this whole like string of events.
Yep. Up until this happened, I was like, oh, it's the dog effect for sure. But then this took #1 spot.
This was a very difficult effect for them. It was really, really hard. I guess they did they were shooting it, like they were ready to shoot it, and it didn't work out.
Oh no.
And in order to redo it, it was like a whole day's work of resetting everything.
I can only imagine, but what a product you get in the final cut, and I cannot imagine nailing this in one take because there's so much going on.
So Norris is on the operating table. He is deceased. And Dr. Copper, being a doctor, is like, I'm going to bring him back to life. No, I'm going to try to resuscitate him. And as he's doing the clamps, it's like he does it one time.
Yep.
And then he does it again. And Norris's stomach opens up like a giant ass mouth with teeth.
Teeth and all.
And basically, Dr. Copper's hands with the gimmicks go right inside his body, and then the mouth closes on his hands.
Yes.
So, yeah, the doctor's holding the clamps, and he goes to, use them the second time, and his hands go right through the body because now the body has opened up as a huge ass mouth with sharp ass teeth. Like his whole torso has opened up, and Dr. Copper's hands go right through, and then the mouth with its sharp ass teeth close and eat his hands off.
Yeah, just bite his arms off, I think.
Dude, it is insanity.
It's wild. And then a creature shoots up out of his torso with it's his face on it, right? At the end of like a snake body.
It's so ugly. It's so ugly.
And it's freaking out and it's all slimy.
Yeah.
And then his actual head that's on the operating table, well, you know, on the body, starts stretching longer and longer and longer until his head detaches from his body.
It almost looks like he's like melting off.
Yes. And then the head grows spider legs.
Yes. And John Carpenter said this is his favorite effect in the movie.
Oh my gosh.
And it
it's so
still
good.
holds up.
It's so good.
It still holds up.
Yeah.
It is. And the fact that these are practical effects. This is not CG, dude.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
wild.
practical effects. Like that is the level of skill like it takes to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, the team behind it, especially Rob Bottin, like, oh,
Yeah.
we stan.
We really do. So I can't even imagine because, yeah, you have one moving part on the body.
Yep.
Well, you have like the stomach effect with the teeth, and then you have the body shooting out of his body.
Yep.
With the face that's moving. It's not just like a.
It's not like it's it's not just like hit a mask on the end of it. It's functioning.
I assume that's animatronic.
Yeah, it must
and
be.
then the other head falling off, turning into a spider. So everyone is trying to. They're all very focused on the body part.
Yeah, like the big ass, like long neck creature thing.
Yeah.
And they're flamethrowering it and trying to get rid of it.
Flamethrowering. It's a verb. It's okay. We were making it a verb. But yes, they're very focused on that.
I don't know why I was doing that.
If you're watching the video, you'll see the random stuff that we do. Anyway, so they're very focused on the body. The head has grown spider legs and is trying to like sneak away.
Oh my God, it's so great. And the best is like, is it Palmer that like turns around?
Yeah.
And he's like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Yes, which was my reaction too. Not only does it have spider legs, by the way, it has like two little
Like-
Mr. Krabs eyes.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
It totally does. Like insect eyes or
So
Mr.
it's a
Krabs eyes.
crab. It's not a spider. It's a crab.
Oh, it's a crab. It's a thing crab head thing.
And so at first I was like, oh, the head's gonna get away.
Yeah.
But they do see it, turn around, and then they blast it.
They do.
And it makes such a gross little shrieking noise.
Yeah, I think the creature gets really upset when it's been discovered.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say when it's getting burned alive.
Well, yeah, that. But I think like it doesn't it? It looks so perturbed
It
when
knows.
it's
Yeah.
like God darn it, just let me be.
Yeah.
you.
That's
you know?
its survival instinct, I would say. They
Yeah.
know that if it gets caught, it's gonna get attacked.
No, for sure. Yep.
Yeah, such an amazing scene. I was blown away. So that face on the end of the whatever snake body, that's the scene that I remembered seeing a cut of at some point. a
Okay,
clip.
that makes sense because it's pretty iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
The rest of it, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how well it holds up today.
It's wild. I'm telling you, got to watch that documentary, guys. They really go into detail and explain and show like how they did that effect.
Yeah. So this is where I realized, okay, they can talk. They can absorb you enough to where they do actually speak and do all those things. So now we really don't know who it could be.
Right.
So McCready decides that everyone needs to be tied up at this point, which I also understand.
Yeah, he doesn't trust any of them.
Because Norris did look normal.
No, for sure. And also, like, they were just about to kill him.
Yeah.
You know, so now not only is he afraid that one of them is the creature, but he doesn't want them out of their sheer paranoia to kill him.
Yeah.
So he says, yeah, tie yourselves up. Everybody tie up.
Tie up and we're going to test your blood.
We're doing a little blood test.
So there was a reason to it. He wasn't just like tie up because I want you, bound. It was
No.
like we need to test.
Yeah, we need to see like what we're up against and who is the creature and who isn't. Because I think the conversation that Blair had with him and was like basically, and Fuchs, like basically saying like one of us is the creature.
Yeah.
You can't trust anyone. And McCready is skeptical of Clark as well.
Yes.
That is important.
Yes. And here is where Clark kind of, he's starting to get closer to McCready.
And he's
closer
like,
to him.
and he's agreeing. He's
Yeah.
very agreeable. He's like, I get it. Okay.
Sure, let's tie ourselves up. And McCready's like, stop right there.
Yeah.
And so they go on with their conversation. And at one point here, Clark tries to, I think he has like a scalpel.
He does. Yeah.
And he goes to try to stab McCready because like McCready's just taking over, and I guess like they didn't really agree to that.
No, and I think also like Clark, I think there are a couple of reasons for that. I think one, Clark is paranoid as well. He probably is low key worried that McCready is the thing, and now they're just handing themselves over to him.
Yeah.
Two, he is devastated by what happened to those dogs.
Yeah.
Like I'm convinced that plays a part in why he's also willing to kill McGreedy.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, and also this is after Knowles just said, I found his tattered jacket outside.
Yeah. So there's like, it's layered, right?
Yeah.
And then in his own paranoia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here, Clark tries to jump McCready from behind with a scalpel. And McCready, the way he turns with a swiftness and just shoots Clark right in the head.
Without even missing a beat. He doesn't even take a second. He's just like, bam, done.
Which, I mean, respect, I guess. He was going to kill him or try to. So, I mean, your face.
Like, I didn't hate it.
He just takes charge.
That's our boy McCready. No, I mean, I was sad because I liked Clark.
I did too.
I really liked Clark. I was rooting for him. But I also understand why McCready's not fucking around at this point. And for all he knows, Clark was the creature trying to kill him because that seed was planted in his head earlier in the movie.
Yeah. I also don't know how I'd feel if there was someone who I was even a little suspicious of that was like, all right, tie yourself up. Like, so it's just going to be you that's free? I don't know about that.
I don't know if I like that.
And so what McCready is saying, which I also don't know how, I guess he's going off of what the doctor suggested, but he's like, if I put a hot needle, for example, on our blood sample, then it'll react if it's the thing. Or let's see if it works, I guess.
Yeah, because I think he's pieced together it can't handle heat.
That's true.
It survives in the cold. And it's the type of organism that's so invasive that it'll try any which way to survive. So if heat is even put on the organism's blood, the organism is going to try to get away from it.
That's true.
Survive.
He did say something about like it's not human blood, so it's not just tissue. Their cells are that is the creature, so it'll run.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which makes the creature of the thing so scary.
Yeah, even more scary. That does make a lot more sense.
Yeah, it's terrifying. So he starts lighting a like wire.
Yeah.
He starts heating up a wire.
Yeah.
He has everybody cut their thumb or finger or whatever and put blood in petri dishes.
Yeah, and Windows is helping him.
Windows is helping him, and also to prove his point, he does his own blood.
Yeah.
To show like I'm not the creature.
Yeah.
And I have no problem doing this.
Yeah.
And I'll show you. And he does.
Mm-hmm. I totally forgot about that part. Because I was starting to think like maybe he was anyway, continue.
John Carpenter loved that scene so much. It motivated him to direct the film.
Wow.
Yeah, he loved the idea of that.
So when McCready breaks back into the window and everyone is kind of accusing him of being the thing because they found his jacket,
Yeah.
he does say something about like maybe someone was trying to frame me.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And I was thinking like, oh, maybe he is the thing. But
Right.
then this does disprove that because he did test his own blood. It didn't react.
Exactly. So somebody was clearly trying to throw shade on him and make him suspicious.
Yeah.
Don't be suspicious. Okay. Anyway.
So he starts testing their blood one by one. He does Windows, since Windows is free.
And no problem.
He's clear. He starts going through everyone's. He tells Gary basically that he knows it's Gary and he's going to save him for last.
When I first saw the movie, I fully thought it was Gary because, yeah, I felt like Gary came across as kind of sus.
I thought it was Clark. I believe Blair.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I think when I first saw it, I thought it was Clark. And I thought Clark and Gary were both infected.
Okay.
Because Gary, when Gary pulled the gun on Windows, I thought when I first saw this movie that he was going to kill Windows or Palmer, whoever took the shotgun and was like freaking out.
Oh, yeah, Windows.
I thought Gary was going to kill him when I first saw the movie because I thought so I thought he was the thing.
So as he's telling Gary this, he's holding a petri dish of whoever's blood, but you don't even see whose it is yet. And he is like, I'm going to save you for last, Gary. And he tests whatever blood is in his hand and the blood like screams.
It like jumps out of the petri dish.
Yeah, and starts reacting. And then so does Palmer, who is tied up. By the way, how they're tied up is all together. The people, like the three of them that are tied, are freaking out. They're like, let me go, let me go. they not only can they not fend for themselves, they can't help either. So McCready immediately goes to blast Palmer with the flamethrower, whose head is like stretching, his eyes are
so
like popping
gross.
out, and then he like gets out of the ropes and flies to the ceiling. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
And his flamethrower is like, I guess, jamming. I don't know why it's not working.
Yeah,
but
so he can't get it to start.
yeah, it's not working. He
Yeah.
yells for Windows to help, and Windows thing is also not working. And Palmer's body, or the thing, I guess.
Oh God, it's so sad and so disgusting.
Yeah, he like shoots whatever tentacle out around Windows' neck, I think, and then like starts like eating him
Yeah,
almost
like,
by
he
his
kind of
head.
like rips his whole face off. Like he
Yeah.
eats him by the head.
He's like, he has Windows' head in his mouth and is like flailing him around like a dog would to a toy, and his legs are just like flailing.
Oh, it's horrifying.
And then he like throws him against the wall, and you can see that Windows is like badly hurt at the very least.
Yeah.
But maybe still alive.
Yeah, like, but it looks like his face is almost gone.
Yeah, his face is gone. And then finally, McCready's flamethrower does work. He blasts Palmer.
And then he lights.
This part made me so sad.
It made me sad too because you can almost hear him screaming.
So he goes and lights Windows on fire.
Because
And
at this point, he could be contaminated.
he very well could be, but my biggest thought right there was I wish I would have tried to kill him in a more merciful way.
Oh my God.
Before lighting him on fire.
I know. I think it was the panic of the moment.
And also, I guess like if
And
they
that's
don't,
the only way that can kill the thing is heat, right?
but I'm thinking
at
like
this point.
if he's human, if he's not infected yet, if they shot him
Mm.
or even stabbed him, which I guess you don't want to get that close.
No, and they don't. At this point, I think their assumption is he's now infected.
And it would be hysteria at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
How terrifying. But I felt so bad for especially Windows, because I was just thinking, even if he is infected, he's probably not fully infected yet.
Yeah, and I actually liked the character of Windows, even though he's a little, over the top. I still enjoyed his character.
Yeah, he seems sweet. And that was really sad.
It was, yeah. It was great, though. What a cool effect. What, like, a great
Yeah.
scene. Shit has hit the fan.
Almost literally when his body flew to the ceiling.
For real.
But it's also important to note here that they tested the blood of Clark, who is dead, and also the doctor who died. I was surprised. I thought he was going to survive his arms being bitten off, like if he cauterized it or something, but he didn't.
No, and Clark was not infected.
Clark was not infected. Neither was the doctor.
They were not infected, dude.
So yeah, he shot Clark. And Childs at this point is like, so you're a murderer then, because he wasn't the thing. But also I'm like, Clark was going to stab him with a scalpel, so it was self-defense.
Yeah, I mean, he could have probably shot him in the leg or something, but Clark, not the thing, dead. Copper, not the thing, dead. Palmer was the thing, dead. Windows is now dead.
Yeah.
Knowles is still alive.
Knowles,
Childs,
Gary.
and Gary. And Gary, they do test Gary's blood. He is also not the thing.
And he's like, told you, bitch.
Yeah, he's a little smug about it.
I would be too.
I would be too. I'd be like, okay, can you fucking untie me now?
Yeah. And so now they're like, okay, we have to go outside and we have to test Blair's blood.
Yep. Oh boy.
Blair is gone.
Oh, he is not in that cabin anymore. And they're like walking around, and all of a sudden, why are you
I
laughing?
love that we call it something different every time. It's a shack, it's a shed, it's a cabin. I think there was another thing too that we called it.
The shed.
Anyway, you get it.
So yeah, so they're walking around Blair's mansion, and and the floorboards start like they're uneven, and they're like, that's a little suspicious. So they rip the floorboards up, and they notice that it's like a hole into a tunnel.
Yeah.
So they jump down into it, which wow, you guys are brave, because I wouldn't do that.
For real.
We've talked about underground tunnels. That we don't fuck with those. So they go down in the tunnel, and Blair has built himself not only a workshop, but he also has built himself a spaceship.
This was wild to me. I'm like, how much time did he have out there to do this? Did this underground portion, his like underground lab, did that area already exist? Because that's so much digging.
And it's a lot of work, and I do wonder the same thing. Like, because obviously Blair was infected.
So it also could be just like, not supernatural, I guess, but not of this world, that he had like the strength and the capacity to do that really quick.
Well, didn't they say that he's been collecting parts for a long time?
Well, so they knew that he must have taken those parts from the helicopter and the tractor, and whatever he was destroying in the lab, the computers, something else was missing.
Yeah. The radio was missing.
Yeah.
I think So was he infected the whole time then when he was having that mass hysteria? That would imply that he's been infected the whole time, and why he was trying to put why he was trying to put it on Clark.
That does make sense,
Right?
too. And it also makes sense that he would have been infected already because the alien or whatever it is would have been building a spaceship.
That's what I would think too. Yeah. So
yes, we've decided.
we have decided. Now, I'm sure there are the thing experts that'll be like, actually, but if we are wrong, please tell us, because I love this movie, and I'm actually curious. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page as you, but I am curious as well. We're not like dead set on this answer, but
Absolutely
it makes sense.
not. I'm not dead set on any answer.
No.
I'm like, I could be wrong.
I could be wrong about everything.
Correct me, please. So Blair has built a spaceship, and they can't find him.
No.
But they're like, okay, well, obviously he's got to be like one of the big bads, right? If he's done this.
Yeah. And Mac, I keep saying Mac because I wrote Mac.
Yeah,
McCready. I think
McCready.
they call him Mac, maybe.
I think they might. McCready, our
She's
boy.
like, maybe.
He gets it done.
So McCready says, he tells the others, the thing wants to freeze. That's when they kind of realize this is how it preserves.
That's right. It doesn't mind if everybody dies. It doesn't mind, because it's just going to wait until the rescue group comes to pick them up.
It will survive in the cold, but
Sure will.
It does not like the fire.
No.
So he's like, we need to burn this bitch to the ground.
We're all going to die. No one's going to survive this, but we can't let it get out.
He does say that. He says, we're not getting out of this alive, which I'm like, how dark, how bleak to come to that realization, and everyone just being like, yep.
It's like, what else are you going to do? Are you going to let this just ruin humanity? I mean, yeah, it's really dark, but I think that's why I love McCready so much, because he's just like, he's willing to do what has to be done. And Childs too. Like, Childs is on board.
Yeah.
As much as I'm sure they don't want to do this. Like,
It's those two and Gary, right? That's who's left.
and Knowles.
And Knowles.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Knowles is
left.
still there. Yeah. I love Knowles.
Me too.
Because he's very level-headed too.
Yeah. And he was just like, we didn't mention this earlier, but he was just like riding around the kitchen on roller skates.
Yeah. I really enjoy. I love, there's a scene earlier in the movie where Knowles and I want to say Palmer are like watching reruns of a game show.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought that was like cute. They're like, oh, we've seen this one already.
Yeah.
And they switch it out. Yeah.
So they start setting up dynamite everywhere. They're like going down into, I don't know, wherever basement thing. And they see that like pieces of the generator are missing now too.
Well, the generator's gone.
Oh yeah, gone. Like completely
because
gone.
they talked about going to the generator
Yeah.
and it's gone.
Yeah.
So somebody obviously took it or destroyed it or whatever.
I'm going to guess Blair.
I'm assuming. Yeah, probably Blair.
Call me crazy, but it might have been Blair.
Blair, what are you doing with all those parts?
So they're walking around setting up dynamite, and Gary is alone. And he is met by Blair,
Because they're like in a basement at this
Yes.
point. They've gone into the tunnels underground.
yeah, and they've already been blowing up sections of the base.
They've been lighting the dynamite and blowing up areas. Yes, because like they said, they're like, the thing he can't survive the heat. So
Yeah.
let's just fucking burn this whole place down.
Yeah, and I think when they go into the basement, that's when they're like, no, we need to burn it down to the ice. Like,
Yep.
it needs to be completely gone. And so Blair finds Gary, and immediately...
Oh, it's so
Oh,
nasty.
it was so weird. Like, there's so much in this movie that I am surprised I haven't seen since, because you would think another movie would be like, oh, we're going to do something like that. But he grabs Gary's face,
Oh, it's like putty.
and his fingers go underneath his skin.
It almost looked like he put his whole hand in Gary's mouth and then stretched his fingers out to like.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that isn't what. That's how it looked to me.
Maybe that.
And it like his skin like stretches and you can see like his fingers in
Yeah.
his skin. Oh, it's so gross.
I was picturing he just grabbed his face like this.
Maybe he
and
did.
it went through. But yeah, it was like you could see just
like
under
stretchy
the
and
thin
ugh.
layer of skin. And
It's so gross.
it was really gross.
Yeah.
And then they kind of cut to a scene where he's dragging Gary away by, I guess, the skin of his face. It looks like he just stretched it out and he's dragging it like a sack.
It's so nasty. And because the group it's McCready, Gary and Knowles have split up. So McCready is like setting up where, what is the thing called where you, like the Acme, where you press the dynamite down? Yeah, the detonator.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, I'm
You got
trying.
this.
The detonator.
Yes.
He's like setting that up. Blair takes Gary away and Knowles hears something
Yeah.
And he goes to check it out.
Yeah, this was the 80s, so they didn't know yet. You don't split up and you don't go to check out what that noise is.
Definitely not. You just assume it's the worst. So goodbye, Nulls.
Yeah.
I do want to say this scene, okay, when they made the scene, they weren't sure exactly like how to get this effect with the thing coming up from under the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Where all like the floorboards
Yeah.
explode and you'll see it. He almost looks like a giant snake underneath.
It's almost like a cartoonish effect that you would see in like a Wile E. Coyote where you can see
or
something
like
is
Tremors.
underground.
Yeah,
Tremors.
kind of like Tremors. The idea they originally had, because they weren't sure how they were going to construct this, they built a miniature exact copy of the set.
Okay.
So I believe her name was Susan Turner. She recreated the entire set in miniature form. And hearing her talk about it is, I don't know Susan personally, but I stan. She is a perfectionist. She says specifically, she's like, I needed this to look exactly the same.
I love that.
And their idea was to use like stop motion animation to get to sort of create this. But unfortunately, when they came down to it, they couldn't get it to seamlessly flow without it looking kind of hokey. So they didn't end up using it.
Dang.
But if you watch the documentary, you can actually see it. And it's so visually, it's so cool that they could create something that is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Blew my mind.
Yeah.
And also, just since we're on the topic of Susan Turner, she actually made the spaceship in the opening title credit.
Okay.
So you see the little spaceship that goes
Yeah.
by? That spaceship had 144 working lights on it.
Wow.
It was extremely detailed, even though you only see it for like a second.
Yeah.
And also, guys, remember, this is not CG. So the opening shot, the title of The Thing coming on the screen
Yeah.
was all practical effects. So Peter Cron, he was in charge of the title sequence, and he describes how they actually came to make that practically, because now it's hard to have the appreciation because
Yes.
now you would just go on a computer and they could just make it. But back in 1982, he had a giant fish tank, okay, filled with smoke. They put a light behind it. He used a black garbage bag pulled tightly on a frame so that it's
Okay.
nice and taut. Okay. He wrote The Thing, like he had that done in like an animation program, The Thing, put it like behind the garbage can or the garbage bag with the light shining through, and then lit a match to burn through the garbage bag that would then open up so that you could see the letters one by one.
That blows my mind.
Is that not the wild, like the creativity and skill it takes to come up with that?
I had no idea that was a practical effect, so I'm so glad you just told me that.
Right? Because that's what I'm saying. Now in 2024, we see that and we just go, oh yeah, they use CG.
Yeah.
No, dude, like that is all handmade. And the best part is when he's talking about it, he's like, yeah, it was pretty simple. We had to do a whole bunch of takes, but it was easy concept.
I mean, compared to like some of the creatures, probably.
Yeah, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, you humble
Yeah,
man. Like
yeah.
that is so impressive. What are you talking about?
That's so cool.
Really neat, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a fondness for Susan Turner and
Yes.
Peter Cron.
I love that. So for the scene with McCready where he meets the final big bad creature, it basically comes up through, you can see it tunneling through the floorboards, and then it bursts through the ground.
So cool.
And it is like snake. It's kind of snake-like, right? But I guess it's like a tentacle. I don't know.
It's just a crazy ass look. It looks almost like it doesn't know what it is, and it's just using everything that it's ever like been in
Yes.
contact with or seen or absorbed.
Yeah, because it kind of has a head at the top, but then also something burst through the stomach of it, which looks similar to the wolf earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
So I agree with that. And it's way bigger than any of the other ones, I think, at this point.
Yes, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I think at this point it knows its back's against the wall.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's all slimy. The slime just really gets me.
It's nasty.
There's something about the 80s slime.
Oh yeah, it's gross. Yeah.
And I thought that this was resolved pretty quickly. He's just like, McCready's like, yeah, fuck you too. And
I
just
know, I
throws-
love that.
What did he throw? Just like a bomb?
Well, also, don't forget, when the monster comes through or the creature comes through the ground, he eats the detonator.
Yes. So he didn't have the dynamite that he just set up.
No, exactly. But he did have a stick of dynamite in his hand.
Yes.
Or it was a flare, but I think it was a stick of dynamite. And he does end up lighting it. Mm-hmm. And he throws it into the creature's mouth.
Yeah.
Blowing him up.
Real badass style.
Oh, yeah.
Great one-liner and all.
We love McCready. At least I do.
So at this point, everything's blown up pretty much. Mm-hmm. And Childs and McCready find each other.
Yeah.
And they're both clearly suspicious of the other. Mm-hmm. But they're also kind of acknowledging that, you know, this fire is going to die soon and we're not going to survive much longer than that.
Yeah. And they're kind of defeated.
Yeah.
Like, I think even McCready says, like, one way or the other doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if one of us there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. And he's like, you know, they're saying something about being rescued. And then McCready's like, maybe we shouldn't be. And the last line of the movie is McCready saying, why don't we just wait here for a little while, see what happens? And then he passes Childs a bottle of booze. Mm-hmm. And then it ends.
The end.
I was shocked at this ending.
You were?
I don't know what I expected to happen, but for some reason, I think I just had it in my head that no one was going to make it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that.
I thought that maybe this might be like extreme. I don't know why I had this specific thought, but I envisioned that McCready would be the last one alive and that he was going to set himself on fire.
Go out like the king that he is.
I think just because they were so focused on not letting it get out that I thought it was going to be like a big self-sacrifice moment. Mm-hmm. I was very shocked at that ending, but still loved this movie.
Yeah, and it's funny because apparently they did shoot an alternate ending where McCready is saved.
Oh.
However, okay, so I read this whole thing. Apparently, it might even be in the documentary. McCready was saved, and it's implied that he's not the thing.
Okay.
However, John Carpenter has gone on record to say that's not true and that they never shot an alternate ending, but they did. He says they shot a close-up of McCready or something that it makes you think that he survived or he was the sole survivor. I personally like that it's ambiguous. Like, I like that you don't know who the thing is. Mm-hmm. I think some people, it's fun to debate it, right?
Yeah.
Like, who is it? I love Childs, so in my brain, I'm like, I don't want him to be.
Yeah.
I want them both to have survived the ordeal because I like them both.
Yeah.
But I don't think the movie would have the same effect if they survived or if anyone survived. Because it's kind of like, they kind of tell you right from the beginning what kind of movie it's going to be. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no hope, really.
Yeah.
Throughout it.
Yeah.
You know? It's kind of like, I think John Carpenter even says, to him, it's like the end of civilization. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want it to have a happy ending.
Yeah.
He wanted it to be bleak and, you know, kind of nihilistic.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So as like disappointing as it is that we don't know, I do like that it ends like that.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it being ambiguous. I also, if he wanted it to be bleak, I am kind of surprised that he didn't then have them be rescued and leave some little inkling that maybe one of them is infected. Like, now they're going to go spread it, right? Because if they die there, I mean, I guess, yeah, the thing would just preserve in the ice.
A huge theme in the movie is paranoia.
Yeah.
And isolation. And I like, as the audience, that we don't know.
Yeah.
Because we feel like them. Like, we are McCready. We are Childs. We are we don't know who's infected. And I thought that they did that brilliantly with the end. As much as obviously I love the characters and I didn't want them to die.
Yeah.
You know? Do you want to hear some like fun facts about the movie?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to look at my notes for this because my memory, it's not good. One thing that did surprise me, and I honestly thought this and it's not true at all, but John Carpenter did not do the score.
Okay.
Which is shocking to me because like he did the score for Halloween.
And he's so known for that.
He's so known for that, but the studios didn't want him to do the score.
Because he was directing?
No, it's because even though Halloween was so successful, like he didn't have a strong enough like track record for them, for the studio to back him doing the music and the score. I don't know. I listened to an interview with him and he talks about it and he says it like it comes down to money. Like he even talks about how the film didn't do well initially and it doesn't sound like He doesn't try to understand why. Like, you know, because a lot of the times people want to know, well, why didn't do well? Why didn't do well? He just says, he's like, I don't know.
It just didn't.
It just didn't. What am I going to do? Like, sit on that and try to obsess? Like, I'm sure at the time it was devastating. Yeah. You know, but it's been, what, 40 years?
Did he want to do the music for it? I'm assuming it sounds like he did.
He said he didn't. He said it didn't even. It just wasn't even an option. So it's not something that he really thought much about. Okay. Maybe at the time he did. Maybe, you know, obviously 40 years later, maybe he feels differently. Mm-hmm. But at the time, they just didn't want him to do it.
I mean, at least it turned out great.
Oh, it's an amazing score. An incredible score. And
if it did bad and he's like, see, I could have done it better.
No, and he agrees that the score is fantastic. Yeah. Other little things that are kind of like fun. The cast became very, very, very close.
Love it.
They actually shot in Stewart, British Columbia. Okay. Which on a glacier on top of a mountain.
I just knew it was in Canada.
Right. 100%. It's snowy. Of course it's in Canada. But they were isolated. They were on location in this very small town. And it was a one-way road to get to base camp and then to the set. Mm-hmm. It was cold as shit. They all got very close because there was no one else. Like, they were on location. And usually when you're on location, you get close. They all sing the praises of John Carpenter, that he is very collaborative. He created a really great environment for everyone.
Oh, always love that.
Isn't that amazing? And it's just so nice to hear the cast talk about their experience on set and how lovely it was. Yeah. And they really got close. And then, so some of it was shot on this mountain. Some of it was shot in LA on a soundstage. Mm-hmm. However, they needed to create the effect of cold, like, breath. Yeah. There's no CG. They refrigerated the sets.
Oh my gosh.
And I guess there was like some kind of balancing act with the humidity to keep it at a certain point. So that would create the breaths. And they were shooting this in it was like the hottest summer LA has had in like years and years and years. So they're all wearing like parkas and all this like warm clothing. And in between, when they would want to like go have lunch, the cast got so tired of taking all of their clothes off that they would just walk through the heat to get to like craft services or wherever lunch was.
I don't know what is worse, like being on set freezing or going out in the heat.
And then also whenever they shot anything with Jed on the set, they had to close and lock the entire set down because he's half wolf. He gets spooked really easily, and wolves are really quiet. Mm-hmm. They don't react the way that dogs do. Okay. So they had to be very mindful of making sure that Jed was comfortable. Yeah. Every single time he was on set. Yeah. And like I said, Clark, the actor that plays Clark, got very close with Jed because he was working alongside him so much. Aww. Doesn't that like make you so happy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's really
Jed. Sweet. Yeah. I just hate that all those dogs died, man.
But just thinking about that other part, you know, that's our happy ending.
I know, right? It's the best. And honestly, I just want to put over Rob Bottin once again.
Those effects.
His effects are just, and the fact that he's not doing it anymore.
I know.
Is like, it's so devastating because, but I also, it's like, yeah, he's like, you know, he did his thing. He's retired. I'm sure he's living a comfortable life now.
I hope so.
But man, was he skilled. Yeah. What a team.
Yeah. It feels like such a loss to not have him doing that now. And he stopped a long time ago.
Yeah.
So to not have anyone like, you know, under his wing but I like to think that, you know, he's inspired many.
No, absolutely. For sure. I mean, this movie, if you haven't seen it, which I hope to God you have, but if you haven't, I cannot stress enough, you have to see it. Every single scene in this movie is just so well done. Yeah. And everything matters. Everything someone does and says matters, which obviously, okay, yeah, that's like every movie, but not every movie does it like this.
Yes.
It's so good. Also, John Carpenter got his helicopter license or went to get it because of this movie, because of the helicopter in this movie.
He was just inspired. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
He was. Yeah.
Okay. Can I make a confession?
Of course.
Going into this movie, watching it again or all the way through, I did not feel that excited to watch it because once I saw the spaceship, you already know how I feel about space.
I know.
Once I saw the spaceship and I knew it was set in an isolated, like snowy area and it's starting to get cold here.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel excited about those elements.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, this one might be like, it might be a slow one that you really takes time to get into, but it wasn't. Like, it really starts to pick up the action faster than I thought it would.
Yeah.
And I was blown away. I'm so glad we covered this.
I'm so happy that you loved it because it is like we talked about this. Sci-fi horror, it's not my favorite subgenre.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a spaceship involved, I'm very hesitant.
Immediately I started to check out and I'm like, okay, you got to give it a chance.
Yeah, because it tells you what it is, like, right from the beginning.
Yeah.
It straps you in right from the get-go. And I think it gets better on every single rewatch.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you loved it.
I'm so glad we covered it. And we hope you loved it too.
Yay. Okay, so if you aren't already, you can follow us on social media at Chainsaw Girls Pod, Instagram.
Yeah, TikTok.
Which I need to get better at.
We have a Facebook.
Oh, we do. We have Facebook
There's
as
that
well.
too.
You could also email us, chainsawgirlspod@gmail.com. Please send us movie suggestions, or like we said earlier, if you know things about the movie that you want to share with us,
Yeah.
please.
Definitely watch the YouTube version, or even if you don't watch it because you've already listened to the audio version, go check out comments because we have great conversations in the YouTube comments.
Oh my God, our YouTube comments are the best. I learned stuff about the movies out of our YouTube comments.
Yes, some of you are so detailed and I'll be like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of our YouTube videos now are going out as premieres at noon on Mondays, Eastern time. And so with a premiere, you can live chat with other people in the comments. It doesn't end up going as a comment on the video. It's like a separate chat.
Yeah, but that's so cool.
Yeah.
And it does help our channel grow too if you obviously like, subscribe, all that stuff. But also leaving us a 5-star review really helps our podcast get seen and noticed.
Yeah.
And we just want to share as much as we can with you guys. Okay, bye.